Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Trailhead.
You almost forgot the name of your podcast.
No, I just wanted to.
What's up, guys?
As you can see, Caleb's back. It's like he never left. Yeah, really, we're recording from his apartment complex in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. We were going to record with Camelback behind us, but yeah, someone's throwing a party in the clubhouse, so
Yeah, so
here we are.
lounge.
Lounge. This one is honestly, it came to me as I was coming down here today. This one is going to be about forgiving, and how forgiving is really hard a lot of times, but it's so needed in I think every aspect of our lives,
Yeah,
even though it's really, really difficult. So I think that's gonna be the topic of today. It's just forgiving others, forgiving ourselves, and just kind of forgiving ourselves for where we're at, in our lives in this present moment. So, what is something that you have had to forgive yourself recently? Can I hit you with that?
recently, yeah, thanks. Thanks. Recently, I think it's like just being nice to family, especially my mom, because it's like really, I don't know. So I'm studying emotional intelligence a lot, and the amygdala is like such a culprit for so much bullshit in our lives, because it's designed to be a detector of dangers before anything else. It's like that's dangerous, and it kind of hijacks your nervous system so that you're really only focused on the problem and you're acting from the lower part of the brain. So it's like something threatens you, and it's usually because we like relive a bunch of stories about like why something is a threat to our security or making us unlovable or threatening one of our basic needs. So I think getting into the stories or staying out of the stories and being like around my mom right now and remembering to like be nice. And when I'm not, I have to just like really just like walk away and be like, don't be a dick to your mom. That's like, and that's kind of hard because it's like I'm hard on myself when I am because I'm like, it's so unnecessary. It's just a stressful time too. So you really have to forgive yourself for not being perfect and yeah, just ride ride the waves as they come up. And it sucks. Like just nobody wants to be mean to their family, but those triggers are wild, and we all have different triggers. So that's what I've been observing. But yeah, for sure, just being nice to my mom and forgiving myself for not always having the capacity to be nice in every moment.
I think that's especially hard for like people who have hurt us in the past, right? Like people who have hurt us and who have, I mean, family members, like a lot of times, can bring up a lot of triggers. And it's also really interesting because we think of ourselves as like getting older, right? Like, damn, I'm 29 now, but our parents are really getting older. And I think that's something that also is,
For sure.
it's difficult to see, but it's like maybe they're a little bit slower now, or maybe they're not as sharp, or they need help in certain ways. And it is sometimes, it's difficult. It was, for instance, for me moving home, that was a big thing, was a big reason. Honestly, the only reason was for my mom, to help her out and to be around her and help out the restaurant and kind of take some burden off of her. But yeah, it is a trip because it's like, shit, I'm 29, but then you're like, crap, like my mom is almost 70, and it's like, it's kind of crazy to think about.
So crazy.
But what are some ways that you've had to forgive people, and how does that look for you? Like, what are some things that have helped you?
You know what? I spent a lot of time, especially through psychedelics, where it was just so in my face that the things that we like really don't like about other people are probably a shadow part of us that hasn't been integrated. So I think like when you look at somebody's bullshit, you could see it in yourself, and be that like dishonesty, or just like having no empathy for other people, or yeah, just being cold and insensitive, like pretty much anything. It's easier to empathize and forgive with people when you realize that these are just like human flaws and it's not like particular to any one being. Like we all have the same emotions, we all have the potential to do shitty, stupid things, and we all make mistakes. So I think like recognizing that I have all that inside of me too, makes it a lot easier to forgive other people, because it's like you make them more human and make their problems like superhuman. So it's not that hard to forgive. You just have to like recognize that those qualities exist in all of us, and that any one of us could be subject to that. And we probably will. At some point, we'll probably have to forgive ourselves for the same mistakes if we don't, do our due diligence to plan around it and to just do better, So, what about you?
Like who was like someone I've forgiven, or like how I did it?
Yeah, both.
Oh man. I think for me is, I've talked about like kind of a lot about this podcast, but my dad is probably the hardest, most like definitely the hardest thing I've ever had to do, right? And obviously healing never stops. Like anyone listening to this knows that. But for me, it has been such a big, like I'm 29 and my dad fucked me up from like ages. I mean, I feel like when I was young, like I was talking to Ben about this and he said psychology, like we pick up, things when we're even like toddlers, subconsciously we don't even know, right? And I picked up like probably my dad being an asshole to my mom when I was, barely born, you know what I mean? And yeah, he just is really, it's sad because I talked about this in the last podcast too, but when you're young, you don't have the tools, right? Like you think when you're a kid, like you blame yourself, right? For your dad's incapability to be a father. And that could be a mom, that could be whoever, your grandma, whoever is raising you. Like my dad is in his mid 70s and has done no inner work, zero. Like he would never be on a podcast like we're talking right now, and I think that generation was just raised that way, right? But then that's another excuse. You could say like, oh, I was a shitty, and it's so weird to me, bro, because I was talking to him, and I recently learned this last couple of years ago, and they said, Dad, why are you like this? Like, why are you so distant and just not there? And I asked him, I was like, was your dad like that? And it was so weird, bro. He goes, no, my dad was the most loving and present dad ever. It was so, like, honestly, I was sitting there in the car and I was enraged, bro, because I was like, where the fuck did that disconnect go? Like, if you were raised by such a beautiful platform or like an area to grow and live, like what happened? Where was that disconnect, right? But for me, I could talk about this all day because it really did. I mean, it still affects me.
Did you ask him? Did he not really value it? Did he think it like did
Dude,
do anything for him, or did you guys get into it?
My dad will die on his deathbed thinking that he has done nothing wrong. Truly, that's how big of a narcissist my father is, right?
Shit.
Like he will literally die on his deathbed. And I told Ben that, I said maybe he'll realize on his deathbed, like the man he was to the people around him and how many people he hurt. And Ben even said, my therapist was like, honestly, Kyle, I don't think he will. And I was sitting there across from him and you're right. I really don't think, I think that he is just he believes his lies, like he's a narcissist, like with the capital N. And it's really sad, but like at the end of the day, like, and that's a huge thing I've talked about before too, is boundaries, right? Like up and for so many years, bro, like I let my dad rock me and just like show up for a week and then dip. But I've seen my dad in 19 years, I've seen my dad 8 times. And I think I talked to you about in the first podcast, but I could have walked right by my father in the airport. I'll never forget this. I'm coming down the escalator and he wore these like Morel old man shoes, and I'm coming down and he's still like, I'm like from me to this camera and he's still looking up the escalator. Like, yeah, I was chubby and like I looked a little bit different, but like that hurt, bro. I'll never forget that. Like he don't even know what I look like. And then he wrote me a letter. So like I was in senior year of high school and I wrote him a letter because I had this idea of, I wrote him the most powerful letter. Like Ben said, don't write a hateful message. You did this and it made me feel this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote him this letter just basically like, you did this and you left and he did that. Like he left Flagstaff, totally bailed the state.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought he was still living in Flagstaff as a kid. My mom like picks me up from the or the orthodontist office. Like I need to show you something, and takes you to my dad's house, and it's foreclosed. Like he doesn't live there. He told me he lived there for like 8 months. Just so many things, And I remember just like, yeah, he just like totally for the whole time, like has just, for many years. I wrote him that letter. I went to the creek, bro, in Sedona. I meditated and I wrote him those powerful letter. Like if I was a father and received that, I'd be like, shit, right? Like I need to like
For sure.
fix my shit. And he sends me a letter back. It was my birthday, like maybe like later that year, like 8 months or 9 months later. Never got a response. And he sends me a birthday card. And it said, there were times, Kyle, there were times in life where I didn't think you'd make it, but now it seems like you have your head on your shoulders. I hope you vote for Trump. Love, Dad. With the $50 gas card. And I remember saying, like, crying to my mom, being like, what the fuck? Like, there's just, where is this disconnect? And I just don't think he's capable, right? And but it's taken me so many years to realize that. But to like circle back to forgive, it's like, how do you forgive someone who's totally ransacked your life, right? Like suicidal thoughts as a kid, on this medication, like going to therapy, like just like so lost in the world, like because of my father, and there's an abandonment. And, I think it would have been easier if he would have just been like, all right, peace, like I hate you, and never came back. But it was that year after year of like promises.
Sure.
And yeah, it's really hard to forgive him. But recently I went to the stupa in Sedona so I wrote my dad a letter. And I basically just say goodbye. Like my relationship was not serving me. This past year, I am truly the happiest I've ever been. And I've started to cut out friends, relationships, people with my life that have not served me or don't serve me anymore and don't have a reason in my life, right? And I've given him so many chances, so no more. And so I wrote him a letter and I sent it to him through FedEx. And yeah, I blocked him on everything. He knows my address. He knows what restaurant I own. Like, he can like come see me, whatever it is. If he wants to get in contact with me, he can at the end of the day. But that release, bro, right, of just like sending it was like this weight on my shoulders. Like writing him a letter when I'm back in high school and college, like it took a lot, but this was like, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was so just empowering. But yeah, to forgive him, it's the people listening to this. There's people in your life we've talked about. It's like, why should I forgive them? Like they have so fucked me over, bro.
Yeah.
And like done me so dirty, and years of like seriously like years of tears and like you know what I mean, and like
Still cry, bro.
Yeah.
Shit from,
it gets
so
you,
funny.
bro.
Yeah.
And it's the hardest thing to sit there and forgive. But I went to the stupa and they have a prayer book, that prayer book on the back.
Yeah.
And I wrote and I just said, I hope my dad one day forgives himself for the hurt that he's caused me and other people. And I remember like I wrote it and I put the pen down, I closed the prayer book to like the metal door, and I remember sitting there and I was like, wow, like I was able to write that. Years ago I was like, and even reading that letter to like my mom and to friends after I sent it, I cried, bro. Like when I wrote the other letter, I would read it to my friends, and I would just bawl. And now I wrote that letter, I didn't cry once. And I was like, why didn't I cry? And my friend was like, because you've healed. And of course you haven't always healed. It's still going to take time.
Sure.
But yeah, that's like, I know that was a ramble, but for me, that was really, still, bro, it affects me. Like there's so many questions I have, like why, there's just so many questions I have and I'll never have answers to, but that's on him, bro. Like if you believe in God or you believe in whatever it is, karma, whatever, like I feel like he's going to have to answer that shit one day, and he's going to have an answer.
Sure. Do you think after all that, like, where do you think you're at in the stages of forgiving him? Do you think you feel closer?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely am. Um, when I wrote that, bro, it
Yeah,
was a real powerful moment.
yeah.
And I went to Telluride, and I I brought the letter with me because Kimberly, my acupuncturist, was like, you can burn it, you can send it to him, or you can release it. And I sent it to him, and then I also took it. It was kind of interesting, dude. It was like I was in Telluride, I was camping, and there were so many spots. There was like this creek spot in Uray right by the hot springs. And I was
Hmm.
like, let me just throw it in the creek, pull over real quick, and like throw the letter in the creek. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, it needs to be more memorable. Like it needs to be more, oh, happen right at the time. And then I was by our campsite. There was a creek, and I was like, I don't know. Anyway, so I go on this beautiful
Mm.
hike. So beautiful, bro. It's
Yeah.
until you're right overlooking the ridge, and it ends up at the creek. Saw a stick. It's like this is the time. Had some string, got some string, some rope, and just like
Mm.
tied it to this. And I like journaled, and I just remember crying, bro. And I remember sitting there. I was like sitting on the rock, and I was just like, I'm ready. Like it's time to like throw it. And I throw it. There's like this little waterfall. I throw it in the waterfall, and it goes. And I stand up to like watch it, and it's just spinning. And then it gets stuck on a rock, and I'm like, fuck, bro, am I gonna have to go down there and like, break it open and like release it? And it was so beautiful, bro. I'm sitting there watching it like stuck on this rock and the stick, and I'm like, is it gonna release? And I picked up a rock to like throw at it, and then all of a sudden it goes. And I cried, and then I
Hmm.
released it. And I think that was the most pivotal healing moment, probably without after sending it, it was a big release. So
Yeah.
yes, I do feel that way. Obviously,
That's
it's
cool. Yeah.
you're never gonna fully forgive
Yeah.
because you'll never fully understand. I feel like,
Yeah.
but you know, um, it's also like forgiving yourself too, and so many things. And we could talk
Hmm.
about that. It's a whole other thing. But um, yeah, I just remember as a kid how much it like messed me up, bro.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So.
Yeah, dude, it all blends together, and I don't like nobody makes it out unscathed. Everybody just handles it different, and it's kind of um, it's just so important to let shit go and to be okay with who you are and not be ashamed to be here and know that everybody else is doing their best with their level of consciousness and how they know how to. Um, but it's yeah, I think the whole letting go process. Louise Hay actually has like a really cool process. She says, imagine your mom or your dad or this person, whoever you need to forgive, as like a 4-year-old child, um, and they're crying and they're alone and they need consolation and just treat them how you would a 4-year-old child when they're like, their siblings aren't around them, they're alone and they're scared, and just go and pick them up and hug them and just show them so much love. And you can do that with your inner child, with whoever's bothering you, with your parents. And I went through that so many times. And to see like somebody that you're angry towards as a child is so powerful. It's so ridiculous. And just know that like your mom and your dad were children, and we were children. And like the coolest thing that you hear about, like the fucking no human came to Earth with a instruction manual, is like because we're meant to write our own story, like create our own narrative and create what the fuck we want to do with our time here. And we all start out as helpless, ignorant, incompetent little beings. And hopefully, if you're lucky enough, you have really smart and morally evolved humans around you that shelter you from the world until you're old enough to make your own decisions and be in the world on your own. It sounds like most people don't have that though. Like really, it's so rare that you actually hear somebody that grew up perfectly and nothing bad ever happened to them, and they didn't have somebody to blame for some programming that they developed in their life. So it's just a human thing. I think that's part of the experience. Is you do your best and you try not to fuck up other people, and that's it. But the Lewis Hay thing was definitely a huge exercise for me that I will still go back to because it's like it's just one of those things. It's so helpful, so powerful.
Yeah, like and just to see people, like everyone is walking, their life, and how you said, like, learning and growing, and some mistakes, some people, it rocks them more, or like it doesn't do them any good per se, but it is difficult to sometimes forgive and to let go of people.
I think it's like one of the hardest things, especially for myself.
I think it probably is the hardest thing,
I think that's like the most spiritual gangster shit you could do. Not hot yoga. I think it's forgiving people.
Yeah.
I really do. It's crazy.
What's like the what's the most difficult situation you've had to forgive someone for? And
We can go pretty dark here. Let's see. There's a lot of people that piss me off, but I had a teacher that like tried to molest me.
really,
It took. I didn't even make a police report until like 8 years later. Years after that, I started to play with the idea of forgiving that person and just be like, I hope he's alive, or I hope he's not in jail, or I hope he changes or something. And then it became like, I hope that guy's not fucked up and still hurting other people. And then it was like, I hope that guy gets better and he could actually be healthy and happy, because it's got to be probably a really dark and terrible reality to be like creeping around and flirting with kids and just like. So I started to empathize and feel really bad for him. And so yeah, I don't know if I've forgiven him. I think like I want people to be happy and healthy. If I saw him right now, I might throat punch him, but I think that might be the closest thing that we'll get to like forgiving him. It's just like not hating him, and just knowing that that was a kid at one point too, and somebody probably fucked him up as well. So I don't know.
yeah, that's where like the upbringing is so important, and like where you come from and who you surround yourself with, and yeah, like all that is so
Yeah,
important. Yeah, um,
a lot falls on us because it's like we're such dynamic, like super complex human beings. And it's like, I didn't grow up surrounded by terrible people, but I grew up very left alone and very excluded, and I just learned the shittiest habits. And sometimes it was like there was nobody to tell me no, so it was like constant trouble. But like even like you said, your dad didn't see you on the escalator. Like I don't think my grandma ever knew my name.
what?
She called me Conrad. She called me Conrad because I don't think she knew. I don't think she knew my name was Caleb. And it was like little things like that that I was like, the fuck. Even I remember when I turned 10 years old, bro. I felt
Come
like
here,
an
Conrad.
alien. I felt like an alien on this planet, and I just remember like looking at all my friends like running around the backyard, and my mom in the kitchen. I was like sitting at the kitchen table, and it's just like I feel like I came to the wrong planet. Like at 10 years old on my birthday, I remember thinking that I was like I don't think I'm supposed to be here. And they were awesome people. Like my mom's fucking awesome. You know, really hardworking people. Just kind of they got overwhelmed, but they're really really decent people. And even just for their absence, even just for being busy, even just for having to work super hard and take care of the family and take care of so many kids. Because as the youngest of six, like I constantly have to forgive for the things that I learned and am unlearning, and just not spend too much time back there, and forgive myself for not wanting to look back all the time, and forgive people for just being human, having shortcomings, and just know that you know we're gonna make probably as many mistakes, and hopefully not the same mistakes that they did. That we could learn and have more foundation and more um, wisdom to go off of, but mistakes nonetheless. So a lot there still.
Yeah, I think, even like Ben said, this was like, if you haven't been, like, would you trade any of those instances? I'm gonna
Mm.
ask you that. Would you, if you could go back and look, would you change anything that has happened to you? And if so, why?
I want to say no, because I do see a lot of people that have been nurtured and coddled into the person that they're supposed to be, and shown the ropes in a professional atmosphere and taught how to behave and talk and think, and it seems synthetic to me. It's like an artificial personality that's like, okay, so you were taught and you learned a lot of basics, and in a way you develop a little bit of your own personality, but you're really just kind of in the confines of somebody else's idea of who you should be. And in a lot of ways that feels like really limiting. And I think me growing up and being alone, and like every time I think like I needed somebody and called somebody and nobody answered, it was like I went to a book, or I learned to meditate, and it was like every time that I needed somebody and they weren't there, I became a little more independent. So I want to say no, good and bad. I think this is our path, and I do really want to believe that we all have a unique destiny and identity, that like we are on a very specific trajectory and we could change that, and we do all the time with all of our decisions, but it is our path, and it's kind of like a sacred placement is how it feels. That's how I treat it anyway.
Yeah, I think like since I've been on this healing journey, that's how my whole mindset is like turned. It's like this is my path, this is my calling, like this is my
And it was right.
reason.
I feel like what happened was
So right, bro.
Yeah.
And Ben said before I asked you that question, I thought it would be a good time to ask, but he was like, would you trade anything, that happened? And I was like, no, because, I couldn't teach my little this, or maybe I wouldn't be the father that I will be one day because of like what happened to me with my dad. But yeah, bro, like even to go through all this stuff with like numbing and all that shit that I went through, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you having this podcast. Like if I never left Vail and didn't move home, which, was like I said, before this, that was like the hardest thing that's ever happened. One of the hardest things that's ever happened to me. It's been such a blessing. I wouldn't be sitting in front of this, It's just kind of so crazy, bro. All the divine timing. Like I go on my Europe trip and I had an 11-year-old laptop and I bought like a piece of art, and then he's like, make sure it doesn't bend. So I put it in my laptop and I close it, and then it breaks my LCD. And then I had to get a new laptop. And then there's no way my laptop would have like had the podcast, and I would have never bought another laptop if that didn't happen, because I don't like to spend money for things I don't need.
Sure.
I'm just not that like a materialistic person. I'd rather travel the world with that money. So then, I buy a new laptop, and then we have this, like I have this unload, like have this podcast. And I remember you lived with me at the time, and I was like, bro, let's have a podcast. And then here I am. Like it all happened for a reason.
We have a lot of people on too.
I'm really excited, dude. Like truly the amount of people
There's a
who've,
line.
yeah, there's a line. It's a crazy, there's a line forming like of, and who would have ever thought? And, and I swear, like Ben said too, is there's something about like, if me and you were hanging out, I talked to you.
Yeah.
Of course I can talk to you about anything. We could cry. It releases it. But there's something like, I don't know what it is, bro. Talking about it on a mic with a camera, it's like, just makes it even more of a release. Like, it's just like, maybe it's because it's to the world. So you're releasing it out in a bigger,
Sure.
a bigger space. I don't know what it is, bro. If anyone knows, let me know. But, there's just something about just releasing it. Right. And it's so, I think like I asked you, what's the hardest thing you've had to overcome, forgive yourself? I think the hardest thing that I've had to forgive was obviously my dad, but myself.
Yeah.
And that's like the hardest thing that I've had to forgive recently is like, past relationships or friends or whatever, and to my mom, like I was not an easy kid to raise because I had a lot of anger from my father, and then the only person that was there was my mom, right? And so I just didn't know how to control my anger when I was a kid. Like I was just lost. I was just like, it was just really hard, bro. I had a lot of like sadness and anger and depression inside my body, and I didn't know how to control it and how to like, and that was a big part of why I chose to come home at the end of the day. I remember like sitting in Colorado and really like, my mom needed help, and I'm like, do I go and kind of do my own thing and move to Denver, where I had a job offer and a place to live for really cheap, and like kind of go in the city and do my own path, or do I kind of go back home and repay my mom back for like how she raised me? And I ended up doing that, which was at the end of the day such a blessing. But thinking about it. Yeah, but like in that moment, I remember thinking, which is a big reason why I did it, was like, you know, I'm not a parent. People who are listening to this who are parents probably know about, like, know a lot deeper on a level than I do. But kids are not easy to raise, right? It's a sacrifice every single day. You're not living your life anymore. You're living like for that person. And I felt like my mom, bro, like her whole life, she just lived for me. She never lived for herself. Like truly, dude, like my parents got divorced and I don't really think she went on a date. I think, bro, like literally for like 8 years. Like she was just so focused on me. And like I said, I wasn't an easy kid to raise. So, and it's like things that I said that I wish I could always take back, right? Like hurtful things I would say, and because I had a lot of anger, and now I'm sitting across. It's like, fuck, bro. But like coming back home and forgiving myself, it's like Ben told me. He said regrets are only valuable for the lessons that they teach us. And like I remember sitting there and I was like, Ben, I need to write that down because that like was so powerful to me. Because like, okay, we have regrets for how we used to be, or to people, or relationships, or to ourselves. But like we hold that baggage, bro. We walk around every single day with like so much shit on our shoulders, like regret and I wish I did this or I didn't do this or took this job, or like if we keep walking the earth with that every single day, it doesn't do us at all any good. At the end of the day, it's just a lesson. And we need to like realize it as a lesson and like let it go. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think that is the hardest thing, is to let go.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, bro, like to forgive somebody who really, really, really fucked you up for many years, your mental, and it's like, at least said, are you there? Like, are you there yet? Or have you forgiven? It's like, yeah, I have, but I don't know if you ever can truly forgive. I don't know.
I think like creating a new space to move into, like there's been a huge focal point. There's just some things like we don't need to bring with us. And it's like you do your best to like make peace with it and just accept that you might not get a logical answer or anything that makes sense from that person. And you do your best to make peace and start focusing on like the paradigm that you want to move into. There's a place for all that shit, but I would think that the message that any emotion brings you is like the value of that emotion. Regret especially. But literally, like anything, it's like the emotions are the signature in the body. That's a message. It's supposed to be like the feeling body, and the emotions are supposed to be a roadmap of the outside world. And regret, like how do you know something is wrong? Like because it's programmed in your emotional body. And I don't think you have to be raised right to know that. I think like a lot of that stuff is instinctual. And when you tune into the body, if you do like a body scan, and it doesn't have to be like an hour-long meditation, but I feel like if you just spend 5 minutes like kind of tuning into what you're feeling, then you get like a really different answer before you like charge into something, because it's like there's subtlety, but it's like there's definitely a lot of messages that are always just like right behind us, that it's just like waiting for us to slow down and integrate. And that's just how it feels. But it's funny he said that about regret, because I feel that way about a lot of emotions.
And he is 91, and he is the most, just inside, like the most beautiful man I've ever met. Like truly, like he is just such a beautiful soul, and he never misses a beat. Like my neighbor's 91, and he walks with a cane, and I bring his trash in every week. And yeah, you met him, Ken. And he can like, he's got to have helpers. Like, dude, Ben is like, walks around at the door when I come in, what's up, gives me a hug, doesn't ever skip a beat. And I remember asking him, I'm going to have him on this podcast, which is going to be like, so he's like, he's going to do it. He told me, I was like, Ben, like we're so close, like he'll be at my wedding one day. That's how close we are. He's helped me since I was 13. And it just is so crazy to see, and I can't imagine his eyes, right? Like seeing me throughout my stages of life. Yeah. But at the same time, I asked him, I was like, what is your ticket to like, have the life you have and be still like, he's so positive. And he just said, I live in gratitude every day. And I remember just
Oh,
sitting
that's
there
cool.
thinking yeah, okay, but damn, you know.
Yeah.
And he's like, even if it was the hardest situation of my life, like he was in the Navy and this and that, like any moment of his life, like it's just he's lived in gratitude.
Do you have a
So
gratitude journal?
I do.
Yeah. Do you use it like every day?
So the last month I've slacked. This now I've done it every day.
Oh, I'm grateful so
I
much.
know, bro.
It's
Shit.
it's like weird to think about when you think like the people that like the Dalai Lama or like Thich Nhat Hanh that talk about gratitude and forgiveness are like the ones that have like seen real war and like monstrosities and just like everybody being killed in Tibet and like losing family and like the Chinese government, like all that stuff, and just like moving to another place and like teaching the whole world how to like forgive people. It's like it makes those lessons so much more powerful. You're like, oh my
So
god, dude!
yeah.
Like those are people that have seen real horrors in the world and able to forgive people at such a deep level. So it's like,
Yeah.
and they all say the same thing: just practice gratitude and
It's,
practice. So on a day that you're just like so floored and feeling like it's bullshit, like like fuck today, fuck whatever's going on, and you're just so far from gratitude. Do you think like you could still find some things? How do you approach it?
it's interesting. I can like ask you that question and like immediately before I even answered, had this thought. And that's why I told people a little bit ago on the last podcast too, is even if you have a good day or a bad day, like write them both in journal, right?
Yeah.
So I remember I had a dude, like I had been on such a high this past year, and it's okay to have those low days because and it's so weird though, because I used to live in like a low so many consecutive days and now I feel like it's a flip flop, right? Like I live in such a high so many days, but then I feel like when you sit there and realize like, okay, well today's like shit's not really going right. So I remember having a really, really bad day. I journaled about it. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is up with today, but I just feel grimy. My energy is low. I don't feel happy. Like I just journaled about it, right? And I was like, okay. And the old me used to just run and numb, right? Like if I'm having a shitty day, I'm gonna go grab a beer, go grab a joint, just like go to sleep, just kind of like numb it. I don't want to have a bad day, but then the next day is even worse, right? Because you just keep numbing. So I remember I wrote in that journal and I was this is like this past year recently, like 4 months ago. And then I just had a really shitty day and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go in my garage and I see my basketball and I haven't shot hoops, bro, in like months, by like a long time, probably more like a year. And I was like, I'm gonna go shoot hoops. I go to the park and I go start shooting hoops by sunset by our house
Yeah.
and shooting hoops. And I'm just like, it starts like kind of just flowing out. And then there's this older man, he's playing pickleball by himself. And I was like, he's like, have you ever played pickleball? I said, no, but I've always wanted to learn. He's like, you want me to teach you? I have an extra paddle. And I was like, sure. So I put the ball aside and I'm playing pickleball with this dude for like an hour and a half, hour. We're just having fun, bro. I have no idea who this guy is. Just catching, like, really nice guy.
Yeah.
And I remember going home and I was like, I'm going to journal about this. So I said, the old me would have just gone and ran and right? And grabbed a beer or joint or whatever. But the new me went to go shoot hoops. Then it led to meeting this older guy and playing pickleball for the first time. And so that was like a win. Like I turned that down into a win. And it was interesting because I talked to Kimberly about this because I felt like my energy's been off recently too, even last like couple weeks. And then getting surgery and being under anesthesia, and then they give you painkillers, which I took for 2 days, and I don't like how they make me feel, and so that always like that brings like cloudiness and cloudy brain. But like I'm at the point in my life now, bro, where I can realize that. I can realize where I start switching and being like, ooh, this is like not going well, right? Like this is you're not feeling great. Why is that? Listen to it. But yeah, there are wins. Like you need to turn those losses into wins. Like they're always a lesson, right? And journaling, I think, has really helped me. Gratitude too, but like having a journal and like reading back, on February, 20th or whatever, in 2024, how did I feel? You know what I mean? Like where was my mental state? And then you could see how far you had that 10-year, was it a 10-year journal you told me about? And
Yeah, 40
do you want
days.
to talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody I worked with, one of the customers that would come in to the wine bar. Really successful and just kind of a fun dude. Kind of had a little bit of clout. Like he would always buy the most expensive bottles and just drink them alone. So like $400 almost like every other night. And he was like, "Dude, have you heard of this journal? It's like a 10-year journal." It's like, "How the hell does that work?" And it's literally like 4 lines, for every day of the year in 2025, and then 26 all the way to 30, 34. And so you can actually look at every day of the year for the past 10 years and see what you were doing January 1st or, February 11th, and just kind of reflect on your stages of development and your mindset and the vocabulary, and just kind of see where you were at and what you were doing. So I'm 40 days into it, and it's always got me thinking like I need to get clear on like my 10-year goals. And when I think about goals, it's like really hard for me to set things in stone. I almost like don't like planning, because it's like I know that when I have an intention to do a thing, like the world is gonna fucking change. And like plans change, everything changes all the time. So I'm like not a huge fan of goal setting, but the goal gives you a sense of direction and purpose. So it's like sometimes they're necessary. But since I've been doing the journaling, I'm like, what am I going to be writing on the lines? Like 7 years down, 8 years down. So it's got a new rhythm in my brain going like, what do I want that to look like? And that's like a journaling prompt that I do all the time. So it's always going to be gratitude, things that I'm excited about, because those are kind of the emotions that I want programmed the most: gratitude and joy. But writing about who you're becoming is usually not like usually doesn't have anything to do with like goals or materialism. It's usually like, well, I want to be happy, I want to feel fulfilled, I do want like an abundance of resources, be it money or freedom of time, freedom to make my own decisions and be wherever I want to be at that time of my life. And but a big one is just like my relationship to people and how I handle conflict and stress, and especially forgiveness and like all that shit. It's definitely, I don't see like an unevolved, angry, disgruntled dude that like never healed his shit and is really mad at the world and hates women and hates the president and is disempowered and has no accountability for his beliefs. Like I see like an evolved, well-adjusted, responsible human being that people want to be around, that also did well in his life and forgave people and himself and grew into a maturity and like a higher conscious awareness. So it's funny that you mentioned like gratitude and like accepting the high or the low, because it kind of feels like when you're doing really good and everything feels synchronized and you're just in your flow, it's like, oh, this is great. And then when you lose it, you're like, what the fuck? Like I thought I was doing good, and I thought things were like going in a good direction, and like that's just part of the experience. And I think when you wake up to like just this, like this is a meditation, then you can remember that like there's going to be some stormy days, and whether you like hit every green light or a bird shits on your head, you're in your experience, and whether or not you greet that present moment with joy and gratitude and acceptance, or you reject it because you think it should be better, then that's up to you. But it's like I think that's the whole key, is like just being grateful for the whole thing. That was a whole roundabout way of saying get a journal.
No, I think, and it just honestly, doing what we know we need to do is also can be really difficult, right?
Oh yeah.
Like for me, getting up in the morning and having that time to, I'm bad at it, dude. Like I'll get up, my alarm goes off, I'm gonna check my phone, I'm gonna like dig
Check
around.
your phone when you wake up.
Yeah, it's
First
bad.
thing.
I'm starting to not.
Yeah.
That's it. I know, bro. It's like but that's the thing, is it's self-discipline, right? Like, okay, now I gotta go get up. I gotta go journal. I gotta grab my gratitude journal. I gotta do 8 minutes of qigong, and I gotta head to work.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is it's empowering, right? But it's just about holding yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the same with alcohol, it could be the same with no sugar, it could be the same with whatever it is, right? Is like our phones, bro, are like such a numb.
Yeah,
Like
it's
if
crazy.
you do you ever walk into like you go to the bathroom and people are waiting in line, they're all on their phone. Or you go and they start like in the
Dude,
Starbucks line,
people
everyone's
are in the bathroom stall and you could hear them like watching YouTube videos. And I want to like kick the door
bro,
open.
that's you sending me videos a lot.
I sent you a lot. Dude, actually, so I'm working in the wine bar and it's like dead. We're all just watching people and there's this girl walking and like no, it's a dude. Walking, head down, texting, walks right into a pole. It's like, "Ding." And we're just like, oh my God, because his head like bounced. And he just like looked stressed for a second and he looked back down and it's like, no way. Like
People are
you're gonna keep texting? That's so crazy.
people are it's so interesting. We were talking about this a couple of days ago with some friends. They were saying how just social media and everything just made just people like disconnect.
Yeah.
Like people just can't even have a conversation anymore. And I see it in the restaurant all the time, bro. These kids will come in, these parents, and I can't judge because I don't have kids. So I don't know how it is to like go out for a date and like have a peace and quiet for 10 minutes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like I just don't think putting a iPad in your son's face is really gonna like help you with that. But you know, it just is. It's an easy
It's a low
cope.
hanging fruit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think that's the biggest thing too is like, you know, yeah, just everyone's on their own path and everyone's on their own journey and it's so easy for us to judge, right? Like it's so easy for us to see somebody, but I think we live in a world where coping is just so normalized and tapping
Mm-hmm.
out is just so normalized. Like it's like why not do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to be that example, right? To like do the things that we talk about,
Yeah.
grab a gratitude journal, and it seems so simple, but it when you get into the rhythm, bro, it's like fuck, I gotta get up, like
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go do this, I gotta do that, and but the reward of that after doing it, you're
Yeah.
like, "Whew, I did
Yeah.
it, you know?
For sure. Yeah.
You start your day with a win, and then instead of like kind of just figuring out what you're gonna do, what your next step is, and yeah, gratitude journal, qigong has really helped me, bro. Like even if it's 8 minutes, I should honestly toss up the link that I watch. It's like this guy, dude, and it's 8 minutes, and it's the most honestly, bro. Chi in your body is so powerful. Like it's something you could do, and I remember like in my early stages of my sobriety and like getting on this healing journey, I told myself 90 days, and this was a long time ago. And dude, it was fucking Father's Day weekend at the restaurant. We had to close for a week for underground water leak. It's Father's Day weekend slammed, bro. And I have the shop vac trying to like vacuum up the water. And I have a line out the door and people just kept coming, bro. And I was like, that's it. We got to close. Like I can't keep up with the water. And I was so stressed, bro. And I remember my really good friend's brother walks in the door and he's like, "What's up, dude?" Like he was trying to surprise me. And I'm like, "Dude, we gotta close." And dude, it was just like the first 5 days on my 90 days. So like I was pretty like it was beginning stages where I could crack, you know? Like but I told myself and he's like, "Dude, like you look really stressed. Like you wanna go grab a beer?" And I'm like, "Nah, bro, I'm good, thank you." Because he's like, "The Oak Creek Brewery's right there, I'll buy you one." And I'm like, it would have been so easy for me to be like, "Yeah, bro, let's go." But instead, that was a huge win, dude. I like went out on the back patio. He went out to the brewery, and I went to the back patio, and I just started doing qigong, like just shaking in the back, and like I could feel the chi. And I remember just being like, like, and that was a huge win. Like it's just those little mini wins you can like look back on and been like, that was a pivotal moment of my like healing journey, and you overcome it, right? And you're just like, oh, I can do it. And I think just starting those steps and those, you just start it. It just builds and builds and builds and builds, you know. And people ask me like, oh, like, you know, can you be like they'll invite me to go out down, you know, to the party or whatever, or like to the Moonies or the bar or whatever. Like, oh, Kyle, you want to come? Like, oh, I forgot you don't drink. Never mind. I'll go have fun, bro. I think I'm even more fun now that I don't drink. I have more confidence. Like I'll go up there and sing karaoke. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is. Am I gonna be out for 5 hours around drunk ass people? No.
Yeah.
But I'll go out for at least a couple hours, right?
Sure.
So I just think it's like forgiving ourselves and just taking that next step is like just yeah, it's important to like just kind of have those wins and like note them, you know?
Yeah. Noting the wins.
And of course, that's the biggest thing I've had to learn on this healing journey is it's not always up, bro.
It's really not.
It's
It
not
seems like it's
always
like
up.
70% down.
Like you see me on here and you're like, wow, Kyle's like always really happy and like he's changed his life. And yes, all that is beyond true. But it doesn't mean that Kyle doesn't have bad days. Or sometimes I go home and I'm just like, what the fuck? And but that is the most beautiful. In the beginning, it was hard for me
Yeah.
because I remember like, okay, my energy's been so high. I've been so on this grind, on this high. And then I feel today, I'm like, I feel depressed. Like, why is that? It those are all, like you said, like experience, those are all a part of the experience. Your highs or low, how you overcame them. That day that like when I met the guy playing pickleball, like that's a win. Like there's all those like stepping stools and your path, bro. Like I feel like I'm on my path, right? I feel like I'm living for the first time in my life. I feel like I'm traveling, I'm exploring, I'm like living the life that I've always wanted to live.
Yeah.
And it's because I've just put I was tired, bro, of like how my life was, and I was ready to like to do the
Chose
work.
to, yeah.
I chose to because
Yeah.
it's like, and Bo, my last podcast, that was it was yesterday. He said it's really hard to like. It was so interesting how he said this. It's really hard to be in the place where you are, right? Or like it's really hard to like take the next step, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, but it's also really hard to be where you are and keep living that life. And I was like, yeah.
Just pick and choose.
It's so hard, bro,
Yeah.
because I remember when I was in that low, it's like, fuck, like you just keep spiraling and spiraling and you're just like, I just want to be happy.
It's funny, my brother like said the opposite. He's like, it just sucks being where you are, but like it's really easy to get to where you want. he's like
that's
just stop focusing on the obstacles that are keeping you from where you want to be and focus on where you want to be. Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
forgot.
No. I think it's so easy to stay where you are, right?
Yeah.
Than to like in my personal experience, and I don't know how you feel. It's so easy to stay where you are because that's what you know.
I don't know. I feel it's like the trash compactor. It's like so suffocating to think that this is it, and this is a great fucking life. Like, I mean, we live in a first world country, and we're relatively healed and surrounded by people that we love and trust, and have endless opportunities in any direction. And there might be some tight weeks, tight months, but it's like um, things are things are pretty great. So it's like this is awesome. Equally, like we both have a lot of vision about like what we want to create, who we're becoming. The ideal, beautiful life of living on our own terms and feeling open and receptive to the world and making our impact. So it's like legacy or like living by your purpose or really impacting people the way that you want to. So it's like if you look at the gap between where we're at and where we want to be, then it's like super frustrating. You're like, dude, fuck, like what are we gonna do? And it does feel kind of ridiculous, and like you're spinning your wheels and you're like, this is it's never gonna work or whatever. But I think just integrating that with like this and just kind of seeing how everything that you want is around you and being grateful for like, oh, like I love and admire that, and I'm grateful that it's in this area of my life, and setting those goals and having small action plans. I think it ties together. Just like it'll definitely take a lot longer if we're living in a state where we're like angry that it's not here yet. I think with gratitude and focusing on the plan, that we could probably get there pretty quick. Because I feel like that's when the mentors show up. That's when people like that actually have the pieces to your puzzle show up, and that's where like I set a goal. I like literally I wrote down just 10 like random, just small things. Most of them like checked off like last week, and it was like random things where I was like, oh, you know what, I've been hitting the gym like nonstop. I have crazy regimented. I go 6 days a week, for like an hour at a time, incremental weight increase, 3 sets, 12 reps or burnout. And I weigh the same as I ever had. And like, I want to get to like 180 this year. and a trainer walks in to the shop, and he's like, I'm like, what's up, dude? Can I grab you a glass? And he's like, no, I was just checking the place out. I'm not drinking. I was like, oh. And I was like, you look good, dude. What's your routine? And we got talking, and he's like, yeah, the biggest thing is just like consistency. Like if you go 3 or 4 days a week, I was like, no, dude, I go 6 days a week. Like I'm crazy regimented. He's like, oh, you're just not getting enough protein. And it was like this. I've been going so hard, and I thought I've been eating enough and getting enough, and I hadn't measured anything. And he's like, yeah, just do this, and you'll do like the next month, the next 2 months, 3 months, like you'll see incredible results. And it's like I have to believe that me writing down that goal and focusing on the thing that I wanted and specifying like this is what I fucking want, that guy like the next day or within 3 days showed up and just like was like, oh, here, this is the next thing that you need on the next step of your journey towards what you want. And it was just such an awesome exchange, it was so simple. So I think like part of being self-aware is like we have to be so aware of what we're feeling when we think about things that we want. And if it's like a cringy knot in our stomach, or if we're like we actually are excited about it and we are hopeful and positive that it can work out, because I think that's when things start to shift. And that's like the whole law of attraction, like that blissful ignorance that like, oh, it's not going to be that easy, but it's like it can be a lot easier. I really do think that. And I think I'm gonna definitely make it a goal to like think that way about forgiving people and closing some doors after starting now.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest thing is like if you just ask, it comes, but also envisioning. Like that's something I've really tried to like focus on is see myself in a beautiful place or a mental state or whatever it is, and just like taking those steps, setting those setting those goals for yourself, like writing 10 things down you want to do or see in the next years. And I just want to say I'm proud of you too. You know what I mean? Truly, as a friend and a brother, I think we're really ahead of our age, and we are doing the work. And a lot of people on here that are even listening to this is putting themselves first, right? They're taking that first step, and it could be maybe that's all the first step they need. And that's the biggest thing for me personally is like, even if this podcast helps 5 people, which I already know it has, because how many people have reached out, that's fulfilling for me, for sure. And I've seen that it's just that first step. And like I asked Bo, how long did it take you till you started seeing results and felt like your life was changing? He said 2 years. I felt like in a year or two, like it can happen so quick. And I just think it's just taking that first step every single day. And Ben told me too, he's like, Kyle, you're so far ahead of your age. Sure, yeah. People come in here who are 65 years old, like my father, for instance, who have done no inner work and they have no relationship with their kids. And they're like, what? Why do I not have a relationship with my kids? It's like, why would you not? Like you have done nothing, no inner work. Sure. Like we're doing already this huge work. We're already overcoming this. And
think about how much further you are. Sorry.
No, I said proud of you. Yeah.
Thanks, bro. Think about how much further you are from who you were. Like, imagine if you were just growing, if you were just going on a different track, like where you'd be right now if you didn't do any of this, versus like that jump and where you're at right now. Who you are.
It's hard to think about, but it's so true. Like it's scary. I was not going down a good path, bro. And I've talked a lot about this in my personal journey, but it was a really pivotal moment with, I was seeing Kimberly, and I was doing esoteric, and she asked me, she was like, do you like, I see 2 paths. Do you see 2 paths? And I said, yeah. She goes, what does the path to the left look like? And what does the path to the right look like? And I remember like, she said, okay, I want you to visualize what each path looks like and what path is to the left. And I just saw a bunch of gray, like no color. It wasn't scary. For say it could have ended up scary, but it was gray, no color. And she goes, I want you to take, at that point, I didn't see anything. She's like, I want you to take 1 step in. And I said, it's just gray. She goes, take 2. And the second she said, take 2, bro, it was gray, dark, stormy, like bare, like trees with no leaves, like just not a lively place. Yeah. And I go, she's like, what does it look like? I said, not lively, not where I want to go. She goes, okay, we'll step out of there and go to the right. And bro, I saw like, you know how as a kid you would see that, I feel like it kind of gets fades as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like we would see like the most brightest colors. Of course, I still see them, but I don't think they're as bright as you get older. I remember just like it was so bright, but like Lord of the Rings, like I'm just like it was lush, bro, and green and
Like the
beautiful.
Shire.
Yeah,
Mordor was on your left.
you know, yeah, like it was so beautiful. And I remember just saying, I told her, and she's like, yeah, like that right there was like, okay, do I go to the left or do I go to the right? And
Sure.
obviously it was to the right. And but it was so interesting because why I have a yin and yang tattoo. For me, the yin and yang means you can't walk the light without the dark, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't have the light without or the dark without the
Sure.
light. Like I don't think I think I had to walk that path for the first, long time in my life
Yeah.
to get to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
But if I wouldn't have, like we talked about earlier, you wouldn't have learned those lessons and been the man that I am today and the way that I walk this earth every single day without going through all that bullshit
Totally.
and all that dark times. And those times are really fucking dark, bro. But now I can help people who feel that way. And I know a lot of these people listening to this have either been in that moment or in that moment or now maybe starting to get on that green path or even ahead of me. You know what I mean? Like it's so beautiful to like take a step back and look like you said, how far you've come. And I don't think we do that enough. Like I was talking to Kimberly and she was like, have you taken the time to sit there for a year and thought about how far you've come? And I said, no, not really. She goes, I want you to sit down and reflect because Kyle, you quit alcohol, right? That's cool. You did it. Quit for a year. I know people who've quit for 30 years and haven't done the work. Like it takes a huge amount of work and to get a trajectory to get it where you are. Like you not only have quit, you've done a lot of work along the way to get to where you are. Like you need to be proud of yourself. And I think that's something that I have really tried to focus on is like being proud of myself and like giving myself a hug because I don't think I do that enough, to be honest with you. I don't think I like sit there and reward myself and be like, damn, Kyle, like I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've been working on, with the heart chakra is like the I am statements, but everyone has their battles. Everyone is, figuring out their own life and forgiving themselves. But that's definitely, I think, to like circle back is the hardest thing that I've had to forgive myself this year is for my actions, how I was to old relationships or, things like that. The person that I used to be, and that sucks, but I know who I am now, right? Like I know what Kyle walks the earth every single day, or what Kyle's in front of this camera talking to you, or what Kyle a friend is now. How much I can give somebody in a relationship, when that time is, when that time comes, So I think that's the most beautiful circle about it is like, yeah, you're right. Like how beautiful the world is. There's so much to be grateful for. We just need to open our eyes to see it sometimes,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Open our eyes. Yeah, bro. I think from where we came from, it's like I especially like in past relationships. I was crazy in love with a girl, and I think hypergamy because if I was still there, I don't think I would have grown at all. And I think if she didn't choose to move on and be with a better man, then I would probably still have a lot of the same issues and never have a real reason to look inside myself and see all my bullshit. And I think it took being fucking obliterated by that relationship to realize that I was not somebody that deserved to be with her. And it took a long time to like not blame her, and now it's like taken a long time to forgive myself for who I was. And it is crazy to look back because I'm like, if we stayed like that, I would have probably never even begun half of this. Being able to look at your own shit, being able to sit with it, being able to forgive people, being able to recognize your wounds, being able to develop emotional intelligence and be accountable for how you treat other people and how you behave on this planet while we're here. Because it's like, you don't really, like, I never had a reason to look at that stuff before. until I lost what I felt like, was like the most important relationship in my life. And then it was like, oh, like I'm not as obsessed with having that relationship with another person as much as I am discovering who I am. And that's what became like number one priority out of that thing, was that like I can't go back into like that dark cave of fucking ignorance and lack of accountability and avoidance ever again. Like I have to be aware, accountable for my shit, and it's really hard to do that when you feel like your life was unfair and you have so many things to blame it on. And the remedy is like be accountable, but always be easy on yourself. And it's like forgive yourself and don't like blame yourself for all the shit that went wrong, and expect yourself to be like happy to go forward and be accountable and be like, you're an adult, you're responsible, everything you say and do and think has repercussions, and you're responsible for all that. And like, oh, you know where half the shit came from. Like a lot of it's just programming. A lot of it was stuff I thought maybe I saw somebody else do. A lot of it is just like by default something that I don't even know yet. And it takes so much time to become aware and accountable for shit and live your life and figure out your life's trajectory and work a job and maintain relationships, and then all the other minutiae of just being alive and being human and doing laundry. I threw away all my socks that have holes in them recently, like 2 days ago.
I saw your post about it.
It was a big deal for me. I've been like teetering on that for so long.
But I think I think that's a man throwing his socks away. No, I think like to circle and realize that it was a lot of you, right? Because it's so easy just to blame. Like it was her. I didn't do anything.
For sure.
And to like look in your side and be like, fuck, like that was a lot of me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that takes a man to do. It's to sit there and realize like, shit, I wasn't a man.
It takes a man, but nothing makes you feel smaller.
Yeah, straight up.
You're like,
and everyone comes into your life for a reason. I'm a true believer in that. Like I straight up think like, I mean, I can think of so many people and relationships in my life that have helped me get to where I am today, whether they were good or bad, or life lessons, or whatever that could be. Like thank you, for them, and thankful that I figured it out at 29, and I'm ready for something now, and I wasn't a year ago. So, everything happens for a reason. Everything, I think, you just gotta, I guess, learn to forgive and live for, like, just to forgive yourself, because it truly is just really like hard to like walk this earth with so many regrets, and it just doesn't do us any good.
Yeah, it's a lot of emotional baggage that we could free ourselves from.
So, write some stuff down if you're listening to this. That's helped me a lot, to just write, especially the full moon is coming up tomorrow. So I guess this will be released after this, but the full moon is a huge thing for me to like write things down and release and burn it and watch it. New moons, write things you want to bring in and, to see on the next full moon. Keep that or burn it, whatever it is for you. But I release on the full moon, new moon. I try to think of things I want to bring in, and, just sit there, be proud of yourself where you are, look at yourself in the mirror and give yourself a high five. I listened to a podcast once about that, and said every morning, because it's really interesting, you give yourself a high five, right? Or like someone gives you a high five, you do something right. Like a sport, I can think of sports. Like you hit a game-winning buzzer beater, or you hit a 3 or whatever, everyone high fives you, whatever it is, right? We don't ever high five ourselves. And it was like this podcast saying in the mirror, and I started doing it, but it was actually really helped. You should give yourself, look in the mirror, you give yourself a high five every day. And then you just start your day with that too. And I think like that really helps, just try to find ways for you listening to this that help you get on the next level, traject yourself, have some goals, write down some things, burn some things, and just be proud, right, of who you are, where you're at. It could be really bad, it could be really good, but then use that as a data point, like I've talked about before. It's like, okay, so February 11th, I'm in a really shitty spot. Okay, start from there. Have that be ground zero. Now go up. Even if it's a step every single day, by March 11th, you'll be already 30 steps ahead, or 31. Like, you know what I mean? Like, be proud of yourself, thank yourself, and just give yourself a hug, because I think we all need that.
Yeah.
So
I'd say smiling when you meditate too. If you do have like a meditation practice, and again,
I like
you don't
that.
have to be happy all the time, but if you're if you're looking for more gratitude, if you're looking to cultivate like an inner stillness and just be happier and grateful in general, like just smiling for 20 minutes, if it's a breathing exercise or you're listening to a guided meditation, it's like hugely, it's crazy how good you feel coming out of just like breathing a little bit with a smile on your face.
I like that.
Yeah, really nice momentum for the day.
I like that. Well, I love you guys. I appreciate you all tapping in and listening to this. It really does mean a lot to me that, the support that I've had and people reach out. So truly thank you. Appreciate you all listening. And we will be doing another episode, I'm sure, sometime soon. So love you guys. Appreciate you tapping in. Have a great night.
Later, guys.